with the United Nations Security Council, which has lifted a 12-year-old arms embargo on Cote d'Ivoire. It was also expected that the UN peacekeeping mission in the country will be renewed for a final year. The West African state has emerged from a decade-long crisis that culminated in a brief 2011 civil war to become a rising economic star. The UN arms embargo was imposed in 2004 after an initial civil war between 2002 and 2003. A French-drafted resolution proposed to remove the arms embargo, as well as an asset freeze and travel ban on 6 people, including former President Cote, who is on trial before the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. Well, let's get you more now on that development. CCTV's Nick Harper is joining me live from New York. Nick, what's the latest with regards to the UN Security Council session on Cote d'Ivoire? What exactly has been adopted?
Well, Beatrice, this was a very big day for Cote d'Ivoire in terms of the United Nations and the way that the UN approaches the country. They adopted 2 resolutions at this morning's session. The first one was all about lifting those embargoes, importantly the arms embargo that's been in place since 2003-2004. On top of that, they lifted the asset freezes and also the travel bans, and they're saying that they're lifting those embargoes with immediate effect. So that brings the end to a 12-year sanctions regime against the country. And on top of that, they also adopted extending the UN mission in the country for another 12 months, but only extending it until the end of June 2017, at which point the UN will cease to operate in the Cote d'Ivoire. Indeed, they're saying that the last 2 months of this extended period, so May and June 2017, will be all about packing up the UN operation there, closing its operation and handing over all responsibility to the security forces and the government in the country.
Well, it's time the UN wants to hand over responsibility to the government. But how is the UN Security Council, though, Nick, justifying the need to lift that arms embargo and other restrictions imposed on Cote d'Ivoire?
Well, simply put, they're basically saying things have changed. The country is very, very different to how it was 12 years ago when those embargoes were first put in place. As you mentioned a moment ago, it is seen as a rising star in the region of Africa. And the United Nations Security Council is simply saying that things have turned around so dramatically, they feel there's no longer any need to have these embargoes in place. Indeed, the wording of the resolution makes it clear. At one point, it says that it welcomes the remarkable progress made by Cote d'Ivoire on the path of peace and lasting stability and economic prosperity. We've seen more than a decade of real struggles for the country. Violence in 2002, 2003, also 2010, 2011 after that contested election. But things have got much better. The economy has improved. And the French ambassador who was involved in drafting this resolution, François Delattre, he said the lifting of the embargo reflects the extent of progress made by Cote d'Ivoire. So the UN is quite simply saying the country is a success story and it's time to move forward.
Nick Harper for us there at the UN headquarters in New York.